we are live.
We're live. We're live with the crowd.
So let's start from the beginning, bro.
Interactive.
Where were you born and where did you grow up?
I am a Miami, Florida native, born and raised. Grew up in South Dade area my whole life with 57 cousins, big family, but
Wow.
only child. So a little bit of only child syndrome, but also a big family and a good family, a really great childhood. Both of my parents, phenomenal, great examples of parenting and what I would, want to implement into my life with my kids, and good models, really. And yeah, I enjoyed growing up where I grew up. I don't think I would change it for anything. Childhood was great. I had fun. Spent a lot of my time playing outside, none of the screen time like we have now.
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up in that era of playing outside and making friends, and
Would you grow up in the 90s?
yeah,
How was it in the 90s in South Miami?
kids were playing outside. I was playing sports. I was playing with my neighborhood friends. I was never really a household, in the house type of body. I was in a homebody. I was out. I was about. I liked staying active, and TV. Like I remember growing up when I was real young, like we were still watching cartoons on Saturdays, and that was the extent of your TV, was like cartoons on Saturdays and a couple of like the old traditional shows during the week, but it wasn't like there wasn't Netflix,
Right.
you didn't have Paramount, you didn't have all this stuff that's out there. You had just had a couple of shows that so everything you did was outside. There was no texting, there was no social media. It was just go be a kid.
Be
I think,
outside, be a kid.
and I think the 90s all the way up to like right around 2000 was the last of that era that you'll ever see,
Yeah, I agree.
you know.
I grew up putting the plastic cup in the tire of the bicycle and made it sound like a motorcycle. And
There
we
you
would
go.
be starting fires in garbage cans. And I was a trouble kid growing up. Like, I just loved getting into trouble. Were you like that, or you were pretty, like, chill?
I didn't start a trouble phase until like middle school, high school. That's when things really kicked in. For me, it was more, man, my childhood was very bliss. It was, my family did a really good job of one of the things. So, from an immigrant family, my parents migrated to the U.S. from Iran during the revolution, and they all came here with their brothers, their sisters, their close friends, cousins, and they had that story of like showing up with a few $1,000s in their pocket, trying to chase the American dream, trying to figure it out. And so by the time they got on their feet, and my aunts, my uncles, my parents, everyone started to build their family. When me and my cousins were growing up, it was humble beginnings. We saw our parents really working their tails off, but they never let us feel like we were poor. They grinded, they worked. We had family vacations, we had family trips every Saturday, Sunday, and sometimes even Fridays. All of our family and the closest family friends that we had would get together and have a massive gathering every single weekend. So there was such a sense of like family and community and culture. I grew up like that, playing with my cousins and my close friends and my neighbors and being in sports, and that's just the lifestyle that I had. It was such a fun childhood, and it's not a culture that lasted past my generation.
Right. What did
It
your
was
parents do for work?
so my dad, he was a mechanical engineer, worked for Dade County for 20 plus years. My mom, a CPA, worked a little bit of corporate and then started her own business, and has since been working privately. And I remember, a lot of my childhood, I was raised by my grandmother, my mom's mom, because my parents were working so hard. I remember there was a time that my dad worked 3 jobs while my mom was going to school full time, and trying to get her feet set up, and get in the financial world of the CPA realm and working in corporate. And I think that's what she thought she wanted to do until she realized it just wasn't for her. So my dad was working 3 jobs, and I don't know how the guy did it.
Wow. How old
I,
were your parents when they came here?
Early 20s. Yeah, my mom, when I was born, my mom was 30, my dad was 35.
Oh, okay. So
So
your
they were
parents
late bloomers.
were yeah, late bloomers.
Yeah, they had to work. They had to build a foundation before they could even, buy a first home, have a kid. I don't know if they're. I never really asked, actually, thinking about it now, if they wanted more than one or not. I think I was just maybe enough of a handful that they were like, "Hey, we got to pump the brakes." But I do remember when I was growing up, my parents just weren't. I can't imagine if they would have had 2 or 3 kids because they were working. They were working so hard. I don't know where they would have found the time.
And then what about grandma? Did she work or she was just taking care of you and raising you?
She had she had a job at one point, but she didn't speak really good English, and her role was really taking care of me and raising me, while my parents were building their wealth and trying to establish themselves. And it it shifted when my grandma passed away. I was about 12 years old. So I was kind of under her wing for, the first decade of my life. And she was a huge influence. She was like my mother. And then at that point, of course, I crossed 12 years old. I'm getting into middle school. That's when I decided I was going to be a badass kid, and give my parents a hard time. And that's when my parents really had to take a very active role. They always were, but my grandmother was like my go-to person for many, many years until her health declined. So, but great childhood, like just a childhood that I would like dream of my kids being able to experience, which in this day and age, you don't get a lot of that.
Yeah, I agree. Did have you ever asked your parents how the like adapting here was when they first came? Like how did they adapt? How was it for them? How was the change?
I've had a few conversations, not very in depth, but I do remember my dad explaining to me a little bit about what his situation was like, because I feel like there was times in my life where I thought things were difficult, or I was going through a difficult time, or it was just getting hard. And when he explained to me his schedule of working 3 jobs and how little time he had to sleep, bouncing from one job to another job to another job, and it's not like year over year they were getting wealthier and wealthier. It was just that's what was necessary to survive so that they could put themselves in a position to one day be comfortable. And when I got that perspective, I realized, I mean, one of the first things I thought about was like, shit, man, could I even do what my dad did? Like, there's people that grind these days. There's people that work 2 jobs. I worked a lot of overtime, a lot of hours, felt like 3 jobs, but sustaining that for a long time is really hard. And the fact that he did that in his 20s and late 20s and early 30s, it was like, man, respect, because it's not easy coming here to a country where it's not your native language. It's so far from home. The only resources you have are a couple siblings, some cousins, you know, and you got to make it happen. You got to figure it out. They've had it so much harder than I ever would have had. And what they made out of they were, what they arrived here with, is actually impressive. I can't imagine where they'd be if they had the same opportunities that I had.
Wow. That's powerful, bro.
Yeah.
And some people are born here and they take certain opportunities for granted. So you grew up South Dade, right? Middle school, high school. Where'd you go to high school?
Miami Palmetto Senior High School.
How was that?
It was an interesting school, man. It was, it was like a 50-50 mix. You had your rich kids, your little preppy kids, and then you had your super, ghetto side, just badasses. And I was kind of like right in the middle there. I had friends in different cliques, and my friend group in high school was actually awesome. I really enjoyed those guys. We had a great time together. That was another time in my life where I was transitioning out of my middle school years of being a shithead, and I was in high school. At that time you're chasing girls. You're just excited. You're feeling your best. You're young, and I actually got all my college drinking and partying and all of that out in high school.
Oh, wow.
So by the time I was in college, I was already in a career, and I wasn't partying like a college kid. I wasn't doing the frat parties and all that type of stuff. I was just going to go to school. So I didn't have a real college life. I kind of lived a lot of that in high school. And my friends were good kids, man. They, we were a tight-knit group. We stayed, we kept to ourselves, had good relationships with other people, but really just good people. And I'm happy for where a lot of them are right now. And I keep tabs here and there, and I know we've grown distant, but great people that I was around in high school. And high school was a fun time. I didn't stress it. Played sports, did my thing.
What sport?
Football. I did play tennis too, so I played a team sport and an individual sport. Yeah, man, it was a great time. It was a great time. I think in high school, my biggest thing was I wanted autonomy. I wanted to be able to do whatever I wanted to do. And I wanted to, my mindset in high school was like how a college kid is, so I went from being this kid in middle school who was just could not stop stepping on his dick. It was just could not, like, just not for one day could I be a normal individual. Then got into high school, some things changed, and then it was like a massive maturity and growth from like middle school kid. I spent like a very short period of time in a high school kid's frame of mind, and then immediately wanted to graduate too. And I think a part of that is a lot of my cousins were older than me, so I wanted to be more like them, do the things that they were doing. So I always felt like I was like I'm in high school, but they're doing this type of stuff, so I want to be doing that. So that was kind of how high school was for me. And it went by like this. It went by 4 years went by so fast, and it was time to figure out how to be an adult.
Did you, were there any other Middle Easterns in your high school, or were you kind of the oddball?
There was probably like about a dozen or so that I can remember, and they all kind of knew each other. You either knew because you hung out with them, or our families might have known each other across paths, or you see their names, and so we knew each other. But I didn't really hang out with like Middle Eastern kids. I was very Americanized, and I actually was. I didn't embrace my culture growing up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I wasn't proud of, where my parents came from, and my background, and what what they were, you know, like what they were doing in this country, I just wanted to be American so bad, you know, and I didn't want, I don't know, ethnicity was a weird thing for me when I was a kid. It
Interesting.
just wasn't something that I was ultra proud of or wanted to talk about. Whereas now I'm like, I embrace it. Like I love where my family came from. I love, you know, what they were able to do and the place that they came from. It's just so interesting what's going on in the Middle East and how Iran's positioned in the world, because there's really great people there, and you know it's a shitty government. They're trying to start world wars. They want to be the bad boys of the Middle East, and they don't care about their people. But in that country, there's amazing people with great values, and you know we would you know allow them arms wide open to be a part of our country and contribute. But it's their government that just sucks, and unfortunately, the people there have to pay that price. But I was never really proud of my heritage until much later on.
At what age did you start to kind of question, like, oh, like, where are my parents from? And now they're here. And why did they come here? Like, at what age did you start to get curious on that?
I think around middle school. I wasn't thinking about it a lot. I had other priorities as a kid that age, but growing up around a lot of Hispanics in Miami-Dade, you know, that's like, and I looked Hispanic, so
Puerto Rican, as they
Puerto
say,
Rican,
right?
yeah. So, you know, I looked the part and I assimilated to the culture. So I was like, well, this is who the people that I hang out with are, like where they're from. This is their background. This is where everybody's from around here. This is where I want to be from, you know. And I understood where my parents, because my parents were big on the news. They were, you know, they were always keeping tabs on things that are going around globally, and you know, they would make their remarks about, you know, things going on in the Middle East and so on. And during 9/11, you know, I was in sixth grade when 9/11 happened, and we watched it on TV. And if you were Middle Eastern after 9/11, you'd raise a few eyebrows, you know, because that's what the lens kind of shifted to, not in a very negative way or a bad way, but it was a mindset that some people had. It became a little bit taboo. So I definitely was not proud of it at that time. And it took me some time to really, like, I understood where my parents came from and what they had to do. But for me to actually respect it and be like, man, like that's wild, that they made the journey that they made and did what they did to be able to live the way that they were living and go on the trajectory that they were going. It took a long time for me to respect that. I understood it, but as a kid that age, you don't understand because you're not adulting. You don't understand what's going on. So you're very sheltered, and it just seems normal. Your parents are heroes, you know, and they're doing what parents are supposed to do, sheltering you from really understanding how all that works. So I had these, you know, stigmas and so on, but it was a little bit later on in my life, once I got into adulthood, that I really learned about the struggles my parents went through, and everybody from my family that migrated from Iran over here and had to build a life from scratch. That's when I started to respect it and to really understand, like, wow, the opportunity I have, it's incredible. It's incredible. We take it for granted.
Big time. I think a lot of people that are born here take it for granted. We see that in our business, right? That so many people here, they're not proud of being here. It's kind of like mind blowing. Like when I do the presentation and I always mention, my opinion is America's the best country in the world, raise your hand if you agree. And there's not a lot of hands that go up, man. It's kind of fucked up and sad.
Yeah.
Pisses me off, to be honest with you, because the people that come from other countries embrace the country more than the people that are born here. So
Yeah.
you graduate from high school, right? You go to college. Where do you go to college?
So I end up, I wasn't one of those kids that applied to a bunch of great schools because I didn't want to go abroad. I don't know why. A lot of my friends did. Some of them further than others. A lot of them, FSU, UF, the typical Florida schools. Some of them, just went all over. For me, I wanted to stay close to home because after that, I felt like I got to become productive. I spent about a year after high school trying to figure out who I am, who I'm going to be, what I want to do, and the career path that I chose was on my mind during that time, very heavily. It was something that I was always inspired by as a kid, but I didn't really know what exactly I was going to do. So my original plan was, since I'm not applying abroad, I'm going to start at Miami-Dade College. I'm going to just get some credits in. I'm going to start working towards something. I'll figure it out. And then that's when I started. At the same time, while I was in school, went to the police academy at the age of 19 and graduated, and then got right into law enforcement as I was finishing at Miami-Dade, and then ultimately went to FIU and finished my 4-year degree there. And college, university for me was just show up, get to class, leave, back and forth, just get there. And I'll be honest, I didn't mind school. I was really good at school when I was in elementary school. Even in middle school, like school-wise, I was good. In high school, I really didn't care much. It wasn't about the grades. It was about hanging out and partying. In college, I really got my GPA together, but I hated every minute of it. College just was not for me. I was doing it. I think me graduating from FIU, and I mean when I graduated, like I knew I finished and my degree was coming in the mail, but I wasn't trying to do the whole dog and pony show. Like it didn't matter that much to me. What mattered to me was that I finished university and got a degree because I didn't want my parents to see me born here after everything they did, and they wanted me to go to school. They wanted me to do the typical Middle Eastern American dream of become a doctor, a lawyer, something along those lines, which a lot of people in my family did. But I didn't want to leave empty-handed with a degree, or without a degree, for their sake. So a lot of my degree, even though it was in public administration, which has served me to not even a not even a fraction of what the degree is worth, it was for them. It was for them. I was not a college student that really cared much to be
And
there.
when did you realize that you wanted to go into law enforcement? That first year out of high school?
That was when I made the decision. I feel like my passion for law enforcement started in my childhood.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
I remember this incident that for some reason sparked like this massive interest in law enforcement for me. It was, man, I must have been 9 or 10 years old. And 2 houses down from where my parents lived at the time, one of our neighbors had some mental illnesses, had some, outbreaks, and just was not all there. His parents were older, and all the neighborhood kids, we kind of played right in between, like my parents' house, the next door neighbors, and the neighbors across the street. We had this little triangle. That's kind of where everyone played. And they were just one house down from that, right in the middle of a long street. And this guy one day loses his shit, and he's in the house. I think he had like a shotgun or something. And there's like this whole disturbance going on. I have no idea what any of that means at the time, but I see Miami-Dade officers show up, and they're all over the street, like 20 police cars parked all over the street. This guy's like, I guess at the time, barricaded in the house. The parents are outside. He's losing his mind. They're trying to negotiate with him. And a bunch of the officers come into our house, and they're like strategizing on how they're going to go about dealing with this individual at our kitchen table. And they come in, they got their vests on, they put some vests down, they put this giant shotgun on the table, and I'm like looking at all these guys doing their thing, and I'm like, this is pretty cool, you know. I kind of like what they're doing, and I'm just paying attention, watching this whole thing unfold. And eventually, they get him into custody, and they take him, and they do whatever they do. And I was like, that's interesting. Like, it sparked an interest in me at
And
that
how
age.
old are you?
And at that time, I was 10.
10 years old.
10 years old, and that's when I started watching a lot of cop shows. All your Hawaii Five-O's and all the fun cop shows. Cops.
Bad
Oh
boys,
man,
bad
cops.
boys.
I must have watched every episode, especially all the Brevard County ones here in Florida. Man, I watched so many episodes of Cops. I watched probably every cop show that was out there.
Did you ever watch First 48?
Oh yeah,
First
I was
48 was that show.
that was in like the modern era of like cool police shows, like real life stuff. First 48 was it, man.
First 48 was it.
And yeah, I was just obsessed with it. And I loved all the military shows and the military movies too.
What was your favorite military movie?
I think Lone Survivor had to be like up there, and Black Hawk Down, because it's just a classic, you know. But American Sniper was a good one too.
Ooh.
That one really got me. The Chris Kyle movie, growing up, and yeah, I was obsessed with that type of stuff. The law enforcement side, the military side. Like it sparked something in me early on that I was like, I want to explore this area of work. I didn't know if it was going to be the military or if it was going to be law enforcement. There was a time that I was leaning more towards the military, and then the thing is, I just started in law enforcement so early that even in my early years in law enforcement, I was still trying to go into the military, because I had some guys that I worked with at the time that they did both, and I was like, well, I could do both. And then it just didn't work out. It didn't pan out that way, and things happen the way they do for a reason. I believe that. So I stayed in law enforcement, and that was the start. From the college, university time, early years of law enforcement. So my adult life started in law enforcement.
What did your parents think about you going into that career? Because like you said, most of them end up going and becoming doctors, lawyers, business, finance majors. What did they think when you told them that you were going into law enforcement?
They hated it. They hated it very much. It was not something that I don't think was aligned with, I guess, their hopes and dreams.
Mm-hmm.
I think what they thought was like, what a waste, of your abilities and what you could do and what you could be for you to go into law enforcement. Like, I know they weren't ultra happy about it. My mom wasn't happy about it. My dad, he, I think he was not supportive initially, but then quickly became supportive. I think they realized once I was serious and once I was doing it, there was really no turning back. I mean, that's just the type of person that I was. Is once I do something and I'm all in something, you're not pulling me off. It's not happening. I'll finish doing what I'm doing when I'm ready to, and when I'm ready, I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna drop it right there. That's just kind of always. I've been like that with everything. I don't even know why, but everything that I picked up that I was really passionate about, from sports to my career, while it was a passion, you had 100,000% of me, all in. And the moment the passion was no longer there, the moment the purpose wasn't there, dropped it like it's hot. On to the next thing.
So your first couple years in law enforcement, What exactly in law enforcement are you doing?
So the interesting thing about that time in law enforcement was there was a lot of hiring freezes. The economy wasn't great. 2008 had kind of just happened, and the country was recovering from that for the next few years. And the job market was tough. There was a lot of. I remember the year that I went to the academy, which was 2010. There were still officers that were getting pink slips, were getting laid off, like police officers getting laid off after, a year, 2 years on because of government budget cuts. And so I knew right there, I was kind of like in the back of my head, I was like, man, this is going to be tough because when I went to the academy, I was self-sponsored. I wasn't hired by an agency.
Mm.
So I was not guaranteed a job, which was unheard of because forever in law enforcement, you would get hired, they would send you to the academy. That's how it is now. I was in this weird phase of like the law enforcement job market that many of us were self-sponsored. We put ourselves through the academy in hopes to be able to have a job. And when I got hired, this is how you can tell I really wanted to do this. I got hired as a reserve officer, meaning I wasn't being paid,
Oh, wow.
and I had to do a minimum of what was it, like 16 hours a month, so 2 work days a month to keep my certification. And then if I worked extra after I got out of like field training, then I could work like extra detail or an event or something, and I could make extra money. But I was not being paid while I was on the job. So my dumbass decided that, well, if I'm not getting paid and the learning curve is going to be very, very slow for me if I show up twice a month,
Mm-hmm.
let me just get the learning curve out of the way as fast as I can so I can start working these other, events and details and things like that so I can actually make a little bit extra money. So I spent, your field training phase in law enforcement is about 3 to 4 months. So I spent my first 3, 4 months in law enforcement full time working for free
Wow.
as a cop. I didn't get paid a penny.
So how are you making money?
I was living at home with my parents.
Okay.
So I was able to survive. They helped me out. And then the moment I was done with that field training phase, I was able to work, like details and extra, off-duty details and things like that to make extra money. So I was working every single day, clocking in for free, while all my peers are getting paid a salary, and me and a few others show up for free. I went out as a patrol officer, very young in my career, and I was just going to calls and making arrests and doing all these things for free.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was making the income that I was making from those extra jobs outside of my hours that I needed to meet. And that was only after really the first 4 months. And then by like the ninth or 10th month, some vacancies opened up and I was offered a full-time position. So then I became, paid to do what I was doing. So I spent, a good like 8, 9 months of the first year in law enforcement working for free as a reserve.
So that's where your work ethic comes from.
Yeah, I had a chip on my shoulder because if there was one vacancy and there's 5, 6 reserve officers, they're going to have to pick somebody.
Damn.
Well, if I'm the one that shows up every day for free and I work 10 times as hard as the people that are getting paid and I'm making more arrests and I'm going on more, I'm writing more reports, I'm doing everything, I'm doing more of everything that everyone else is doing and I'm not even getting paid, how can you deny me that next position that opens up? That was my mindset. And that's why I was able to get it.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I
By the
look
way, I
back.
didn't know that. I just learned that now.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
I look back and I'm like, would I ever do that again? If I saw somebody do that in this day and age, man, the respect I'd have for them. And maybe that's where some of the respect that I did get early on came from, you know, and I didn't realize it. But yeah, that was how I
And you're
started.
19, 20 at the time.
I went into the academy right before I turned 20. I was 19, turned 20 in the academy, finished the academy, and then got hired when I was 21. So there's a little bit of downtime in between looking for a job, looking for an opportunity, looking to be able to get hired somewhere to be able to work for free. That's how tough the job market was
Wow.
in law enforcement, because they were cutting so many government budgets and officers were getting laid off. So people that got hired went to the academy, were being paid for a year, became police officers, were working as police officers for a year, were getting laid off. So how was I even going to get a job, you know, compared to those people? So I really had to time it and wait and really put some feelers out, and I just, you know, it just worked out. I just got lucky and fell in at a pretty decent small agency, and you know, I had to grind.
Now, what's interesting is that your parents didn't support your decision of going to law enforcement, but they supported you staying at home and working without pay and kind of letting you be. Because I know for my dad, at 18 years old, it was like either you go to work or you go to the military, but you don't go to college. And my dad went off to the military, to the Navy. If you would have went to the military, what branch?
It would have been the Navy, because I had a hard on to be a SEAL. That's what I wanted to do. There was like two or three guys I remember working with, Leo and Jose, good dudes, man. We all had this fascination with like that special forces, like special operations part of the military, that we were like, that's what we want to do. And all of us wanted to leave law enforcement to go do that. So if I were to have made that commitment before law enforcement, and that's where I would have set my sails towards, I would have been the Navy. Yeah,
That's sick.
yeah. That's what I would have liked to do. Now it's funny because years later, after spending time in law enforcement special operations and doing a lot of things I was doing on the SWAT side of LE, I realized that I was actually less aligned with the Navy special warfare guys and more aligned with the Army's
Rangers?
special, well, the Delta guys. So Delta Force, like Army Special Missions Unit, that's where my mindset and my view of like the tactical side of what we did, it aligned more with them than it even did the Navy. But the Navy thing was, the Navy guys were the cool guys. They were the ones that were televised. They were the ones that, so a lot of Navy propaganda was out there, so it became really attractive to people. So when I was a kid, of course, I was mesmerized by that attraction on, like, you know, the police shows and the military shows, and seeing all that. It was like you take that in and you're like, yeah, I want to do that. You know, it feeds your imagination. And but I have no regret in what I set off to do, and where it took me in life, and ultimately where I ended up. But yeah, my parents weren't supportive, and I think when they saw how I was working in the early stages, I think that's what made them like really say, okay, we don't support your career decision, but we're gonna support what you're doing, and be there for you.
Did you ever
So
watch Top Gun growing up?
yeah,
What'd you
it
think?
wasn't one of my favorite movies.
Oh, okay.
It didn't do it for me. I liked more of the action. I wasn't like the pilot, you know, swag kind of guy. I was like, you know, go in there and handle business, take out bad guys type of thing. You know, that was more my flavor.
So then how long did you do? So you did patrol for how many years?
A few years, 3, 4 years.
And then what comes after that?
What comes after that is, yeah, about 3 years in or so. My first experience with SWAT.
SWAT.
Yeah, that's, I figured if I'm going to be in law enforcement, I've got to be able to do the highest form of what this career offers. I've got to be able to do the best of what law enforcement offers. Since I wasn't leaving to go into the military realm, it was like, all right, well, if you can't go to the elite of the military, then you're going to go to the elite of law enforcement. So I worked very hard to get there, and I had great mentors where I originally started. And that first program that I was a part of, that first team that I was a part of, really molded me to become who I was when I left my first agency, went to my second agency, and spent my SWAT career there. The early stages really kind of made me who I was because of the mentors that I had, because they were just such studs, and I aspired to be like them. One of my very early mentors, Al Alvarez, I was just so attracted to the energy and the stories and the badass shit that these guys were able to do, and I was like, I've got to take that inspiration. I've got to learn everything I can, because then I'm gonna graduate and I'm gonna go be the best at this. So once I got into the proving grounds of SWAT, I never looked back. It was that, and I fell in love with training. I fell in love with training in terms of being a student and learning everything that I could possibly learn in terms of skills, but also training others. It became a passion of mine. So I really dove into that passion towards the end of my time in my first agency. Was about 6 years in, and then going into the second agency I went to, that carried over, and it was a new version of me that showed up there, a seasoned version, a version that was really ready to go from, you know, like early stages, early competency levels of SWAT to very, very high level. So yeah, that became the passion. The passion became the utmost badass SWAT guy that you could possibly be, was the passion.
And any stories that you recall in your early days that you're able to talk about?
Man, the funniest stories are the most interesting stories are the ones that involve you really fucking up. You know, like when you are the laughing stock of a situation. But yeah, I remember, man. It's not like a super sexy story. There's some other ones that we'll get into, but one of my first experiences. So go to SWAT school, finish SWAT school, come out. I'm brand new. We have a small team, smaller agency before I came to my second agency. And we're like on like the very first operation that I remember doing, there was a warrant. And at the time we had this like sprinter van, essentially like an armored sprinter van or whatever it was. And we roll up to, I think it was a dope warrant, right? And so we roll up to this house, and I remember from all the like movies and shows I was watching as a kid, like what 90s SWAT looked like, right? Where these guys run out of a van, they just basically, it's like ants on a pile of sugar. They get on this house and they're crawling in from the windows, they're kicking down doors, they're just flooding this whole place. And I thought to myself, like, you know, we went through some training, like we have like, you know, a system in how we do things. Like it's going to be a very coordinated, you know, type of assault on this house, and we're going to know what we're doing. It's going to look good too, because I'm like thinking about like these military movies and the SEALs and stuff, and they just look really smooth doing it. and it was an absolute shit show. No part of it looked great at all. I'm glad. I hope nobody has footage of this, but it was a bunch of dudes running out of a van, running to this house, trying to do God knows what to get into this house, and just running like chickens with heads cut off. And
Nothing like the movies.
nothing like the movies, nothing like what I thought we were like, going to be doing. And then I realized like, I don't even know if we know what we're doing at this point. Like I'm just not sure, but it felt cool. So that was like day one, operation one, like first thing. And I'm like, okay, this, we got work to do.
So
Like,
is there like no planning going into that? Is like
I mean, I guess there was, man, I really don't remember, like, it was a while ago, and
so
my
this is
memory,
like training day for you, right? Like training day, day one, or what?
this is like, yeah, like not day one, but like damn near like one of the first things that we ever did, that I ever did in a SWAT capacity. And it was like, looking back, man, I'm like, this is hilarious. It was like a clown show, we're just a bunch of dumbasses running towards this house. But it's interesting when you realize like how far you've come and how advanced some of these skills are. And but yeah, looking back, it was like the origins, but I knew I enjoyed it, and I was willing to go through. I went through 3 SWAT schools in my career, which is not typical. A lot of people typically, you go to 1 SWAT school. I went to 3.
Why?
So I went to 2 in my first agency, and the second one I went to because a friend of mine was going, and it was up in Camp Blanding in a military base in Florida. So I just went to that, I guess, for fun. I don't know who finds these things fun, but I went. I went for fun, and I wasn't getting a certification that I didn't have, right? But I went for fun and had a great experience. But then, of course, once I graduated, that came back to my agency, and I was in the pipeline to leave and go to my new agency at the time. I had to go through their SWAT school too. So it was almost like you have to earn your respect and, the ability to be on this team here at this agency by going through our SWAT school. So in total, I ended up going through 3 SWAT schools in my career, and it was the last one that really put me in with the right group of people, in the right state of mind, around the right culture, around a team that I built the next 3/4 of a decade around. And I'm so grateful to have been a part of that organization and that team. It was, it changed me. It changed my work ethic. It changed my drive. It, it really woke me up in the realm of, the SWAT world and law enforcement. And I wanted to be the best. I wanted to be the best. And I didn't care if somebody else was better. I was going to find a way to beat them. I was going to find a way to be better, faster, stronger, shoot better, move better, do whatever I needed to do better, because I wanted to be that guy. I wanted to be the guy. So for me, that competitiveness really, it woke up when I got to my second agency.
And how old are you at that time?
28. So I've had a little bit of experience. I'm seasoned. I'm in great shape, and I'm ready to rock and roll. I'm ready to kick ass. I'm ready to be the best version of myself. I'm ready to be the example. Like if you think of SWAT, I want my face to come to mind. Like that's the energy that I'm operating off of at that time. And it was, man, it was such a driven time in my life. I was so fired up. And if you would have asked me at that time, I would have been a career SWAT guy. I would have done 35. They would have had to kick me out of this place
Wow.
because I would have died there. Like that's what I wanted to do. I didn't want to. I had no other aspirations in life. None at all. That was it for me. That's all I wanted. That's all I wanted to know. I didn't care about anything else. That was it
Wow.
at that time.
Now, you have a daughter. How old are you when you have your daughter?
So I'm 23 when I have her.
So what's the mindset like being in law enforcement, risking your life, having a daughter?
I have to be the best because I can't dictate what's going to happen to me. And that's a bigger plan than my own. But I can create my own luck. And the best way I can do that is by being the best that I can possibly be. So if I'm doing everything that I can to be that way, I know I'm going to increase the chances that she doesn't have to grow up without me. But at the same time, it also makes it to where I want to shield her from the world because I see a lot of what it really looks like out there.
Mm.
And so it's like that paranoia that you get as a parent times 10. And then also I can't let her be without me. So I got to be there. And if I don't do my part, the chances of me not being there for her go up a lot.
What
So
what was your reaction when you found out you were having a child? When you were going to be a dad?
well, at that time it was not a planned move, and it was not something that I was excited about. But man, the moment it happened, I mean, she's my world. So for me, it was like I've got to be the best example for her, and I was not for many years. Believe it or not, I was not. It took some time for me to really realize what kind of undertaking that is, and to put my mindset in the place that it needed to be, to understand the responsibility that I have to her in her lifetime, in terms of a mentor, in terms of a father figure, in terms of somebody that she's going to look up to and respect. So that was something that I had to learn. Now, I was grateful, and I've been grateful to have my parents be kind of the role that my grandmother was when I was growing up, really helping out with her so much, that allowed me to really grind and to work and to try to improve my life and her life, and put her in a position that, whether her mother and I ever agreed on things or not, or whatever the case was, she was going to be happy, and she was going to live a life that she didn't see conflict too much. She didn't really see negativity. She was just able to enjoy her life, and so for me, it was growing into that role, because having a kid in your early 20s while you're working in law enforcement and you're brand new, and you're trying to figure out your identity, you're trying to figure out the world, and you almost kind of resent her mom for having her when that's not what you wanted. And then now she comes into play, and she's this being that you love more than anything, and you're like trying to figure it all out. It was difficult to figure out in my early 20s in the mindset that I was in. It was a difficult time. I didn't really grow into the role that I needed to until probably recently
Wow.
for her.
And what reaction did your parents give you when you told
Concerned, disappointed, but also supportive. If that's one thing I'll say about my parents is they, especially my dad, but I would say collectively, the two of them, there was never a problem that we couldn't find a solution for. It was like, and that translated to a lot of my mentality in SWAT for many years. And I see glimpses of it now in the business world is like, okay, there's a problem. Something didn't work out the way that we wanted it to. We're going to work that problem. We're going to fix it. We're going to make it better. And we're going to make the best out. It's going to be fine. That's a philosophy that my dad had, and my parents really were good about not panicking. The world's not ending. You know, it's not going to be a disaster. We're going to figure it out. Like, it's going to work out. It's going to be fine. And that was important for me. I didn't realize how important their mindset and the way they handled that situation as parents was for me until way later on, when I started to look at problems and things weren't the end of the world. Like, they might seem like it, and it sucks for a little while, but there's a solution. We're going to work through it. We're going to come out of this better. And it was a blessing that they handled it that way.
And so she grew up mostly with her mom.
At some point, early on, she did. And then it was pretty much 50-50 the whole way.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And my parents supplemented a lot of that. They were great about that. They took that role real early on, and I think it was because they understood, you know, what my grandmother did for them at a time where, you know, they were working their tails off to really make it happen for their family and for their future. So I think they appreciated having somebody at a phase in their life that they were like, we can't not, you know, return the favor. And I have so much respect for my parents for how they've handled so many situations that I look back and I'm like, man, would I handle it with that much grace? I don't know.
And then your daughter's mom, what does she do for work?
She's always been, you know, like regular jobs, you know, hospitality industry, server, you know, just regular, like those types of jobs in that industry. Nothing, no sort of career or anything like that. And, you know, her family came from money. So, you know, I don't know really if she had to even work. But, and I don't blame them for, you know, how they operated or what their upbringing was. I think I spent a lot of time, honestly, early on, resenting and being so angry with and so consumed with her mother's side of the family and her and how they operated, and until I really let go of that and just focused on my daughter and focused on what her life was going to be, I found a lot more peace.
And does she have siblings from her mom's side or no? Only child.
For now, yeah.
And you plan on having more kids?
Yeah.
How many more?
I would say two more. There was a time in my life where I wanted to have an army of kids, you know, but man, and I know some people do it, but for me, realistically, for the life that I want to have now, I think having her and two more is plenty, and it's great. And I just wanted to not have one kid that's an only child like me. So I want them to have a sense of like they have each other.
Right.
So 3 in total is comfortable number.
So you're 28,
Yeah.
right? You're now at like, I'm gonna be the freaking best I could be in this SWAT career. So now from 28, couple years leading to that, now you're 34, right? When you got into this business?
35.
35. So that's 7 years
Yeah.
after that.
Yeah.
So those 7 years, what's happening during those 7 years? How's the career going? How's life going? How's SWAT going?
In those 7 years, I was in like a semi long-term relationship for about 5 or 6 years, 5 years after my daughter was born. And I had that breakup when I got into my new agency, and that reached 28, 29 years old and got into that. And that breakup happened. So I started out the early years of my time in my new agency in a little bit of turmoil, like emotional turmoil. And it wasn't until I met my wife now, 6 years ago, that things changed for me. And I slowly got my act together little by little in terms of just the identity that I had at the time. It wasn't great. It started to get a little bit better and a little bit better. And then the more driven I got towards who I wanted to be and what I wanted to be, it got hard again. And I went through a couple of different seasons. But this whole time in the realm of SWAT, I'm progressing and progressing and progressing and just getting to the level that I want to be. And I would say in that time, I met my best friend. I met the woman of my dreams. I met my partner. I had a long way to go in becoming the man I needed to be, because what ended up happening was I wasn't relationship focused for many, many years. And I was just focused on being that guy. And so for me, it was, I need to be in these 7 years the best operator that I can be, the best of the very best, the cream of the crop. So that's all I focused on. Everything else was shut out. And that closed a lot of doors for me with relationships with some people. It made it harder for me to really connect and have a deeper relationship. I give my wife a lot of credit because she was dealing with me, man. And dealing with me was not easy in that time. I don't think it's easy ever because I'm ultra type A, and it could be a problem sometimes. But yeah, she's been very patient with me, and I appreciate that so much, because I didn't care about anything other than being the best that I could possibly be. And a lot of my teammates for a very long time did not like me. I was not well liked. I was respected, in a lot of ways feared, but not well liked at all. And it was because I had that Michael Jordan mentality of, I'm going to be the best. I only want to hang out with the people that want to be the best. If we're not winning and we're not the best, what are we doing? And if I make a mistake, I'm going to do whatever I can to never make that mistake again. And I expect the same from everybody else. And just like underperforming, I just can't handle. So I became a very abrasive individual to be around in that mode that I was in SWAT. And it was almost like the culture of the team at the time was not as progressive as I was, and didn't care as much. And my problem was I cared too much, and I would say it turned a lot of people off. I was still going where I was going though, but I turned a lot of people off along the way, and probably killed a lot of relationships that would have probably been good just because of the way but I didn't feel bad about it. I didn't feel bad about it because I was on a mission, and I was going to get to my peak. I think ultimately stopped just short of my peak, but I got to a great place. But yeah, I was a tough person to be around. At home, emotionally, in a relationship, at work. If your eye wasn't on the prize like me, I didn't give a shit about having a conversation or a relationship or anything. And then it took some years of, some of my close friends that were, side by side with me to kind of calm me down a little bit and realize that, hey, man, like, not everybody has the passion and the, like, cares so much and is really trying to do the things that you're doing. Just remember, like, some guys are just showing up here and they just want to, like, play their part. Not everyone's trying to be super SWAT guy. So I went through some learning curves in those 7 years. It
So
was tough.
you met your wife at what, 29?
Yeah.
29? How'd you guys meet?
So she was working as a brand new officer at the time, fresh out of the academy on midnight shift. And we were working the same shift in the same district in the same area. And we just kind of hit it off. And when she started, she was dating somebody at the time from another agency, and I was trying to court her. And so, of course, I was doing all the things that I could possibly do to get her attention, and after a few attempts, it worked, and and then that gave me the privilege of putting her through hell for the next 6 years. So I don't know if she got a good deal out of it. Who knows? Remains to be seen. I'm trying to pay that out now and really give the best of me, and I think we're getting there. We're treading in the right direction.
So now she's younger than you.
By 6 years, yeah.
So she's what, 22 at the time?
She was, yeah, like 22, 23 maybe, 23.
23.
Mm-hmm.
So now you guys been married how long?
We've been married, we're going on right about 3 years in a few months. And together 6 and change. And it's been a very unconventional early stages of our relationship, going from both of us being in law enforcement, the age gap, the experience gap, and then growing together through that. Her coming into law enforcement brand new, ambitious, wanting to do X, Y, and Z and become this and succeed in this and be this badass woman in law enforcement that people respect, and she earns her keep every step of the way. And me, like, I'm this guy that, people look at, and, I look great, and I'm in the best shape of my life, and I'm kicking ass, and I've got this girl that I'm, like, courting, and, her and I are hitting it off, and but I don't really care too much about anything because I'm focused on being Mr. Super SWAT guy, and like all these different dynamics are going on. And it really took, I would say, man, 5 out of the 6 years that we were
Wow.
together to start heading in the right direction. We weren't even heading in the right direction when we got married. It was just, we just knew that we were right for each other. We knew that we loved each other more than anything. But it's been tough because when you have two very driven, very competitive, very motivated, ambitious people, it's fire versus fire sometimes. And I don't know who wins, fire or fire, whichever fire's hotter, I guess, at the time. But it could be very intense. And what we've learned since then is like, taking that flame, that big giant fireball, and channeling it to one directed like torch instead of just a big mess of a fireball. So between law enforcement and growth and just experiencing things, and then coming into entrepreneurship, there's been a lot of things that have evolved in our relationship, and I feel like we're starting to head in the right direction where we're going to see some really great things,
Yeah.
you know.
So that kind of takes us to, May of this year, where your wife shows up to a workshop at our office, our financial workshop, our famous financial workshop. And she comes in and sees the workshop, comes out fired up, and mentions that her husband needs to see the workshop.
Yeah.
So then I would say about a week after that, now you show up with her for the workshop, and you see the workshop. What's going through your mind when you learn about the industry, when you take all that in? Because you're Mr. SWAT guy for the rest of your life. You're kind of signing on that dotted line that this is what you're doing to until you can't do it no more, right?
100%.
And you come in there and then you're like, what's your thought process when you got out and you sat down in that chair with us and we're like, is this something you want to do? What's your thought process?
I go back to that day a lot, and there's times in my life where I made decisions because I felt like making those decisions. And then there's times in my life where I made decisions almost subconsciously. Like, I wasn't really in charge of making that decision. The actions were happening, the words came out of my mouth, the decisions were made, but it wasn't me like deciding, because if it was up to me, I would have never gone to that workshop. I would have never showed up. I would have never done anything outside of what I saw my identity being, which was my passion. But before that, my wife and I were in a time and a place in our relationship where it was like, okay, like we've gotta really become adults in the marriage realm. Like, I felt like we were juveniles still in marriage, and we had to graduate and become adults. And we went through some difficult times that, like, we weren't in a honeymoon phase. We actually never took a honeymoon ever. And so there was no honeymoon phase. There was no honeymoon. There was just none of that. It was right down to business, right back to work. And so for us, we were at a time in our lives where I was always a dreamer internally. That dreamer switch got shut down for many years because I was operating off of just a purpose that I had, but becoming, the best SWAT guy ever that I could possibly be wasn't a dream. That was just a purpose. That was just like a sense of like, I want to accomplish this. So dreaming was shut off for me for many years. I think the last time I was dreaming was when I was a kid, dreaming of becoming, a police officer one day. Like I had a dream. I saw things and it inspired me. So for me, I was just on this path of I didn't know what. And when we were going through some really hard times in our relationship, I was like reevaluating everything, reevaluating, our relationship, our life, our career. Why do we live here? Why do we do this for work? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Why is anything happening the way it is? And I got very in touch with my spiritual side that I had really gotten distant from over the years. And I began to pray again, and I began to have conversations, and write and really process things. And I got to a point where I was just hoping for an opportunity for myself, for my wife and I, to change our situation, to make this pit, this quicksand that we're in with our relationship, just to climb out of this thing and do something different. And I didn't know that doing something different or going down a different path meant leaving law enforcement or, career change or anything like that, just doing something more positive. And so internally, I had this prayer, I had this thing that I was asking for, this opportunity that I wanted. And no opportunity showed up. Just one, just the one. And it just so happened that it was her showing up to that workshop. So when she told me about it, I was like,
What did she say?
she said, you got to come see this. Because before she was going to it, she was like, she had this mentality of finances aren't her thing. Financial literacy is not her thing. Learning about things outside of law enforcement or what we really know wasn't like attractive to her. So she was going just because she was trying to be supportive of somebody that we knew. And,
By
I
the
was,
way, shout out to that guy.
shout out to that
Big
guy.
shout
You
out to
know who
that
you
guy.
are.
Holy moly.
I owe you quite a few beers. So I'm telling her at the same time, because I was working overtime that day on Fort Lauderdale Beach, working like a dog, and she was on her way there, and we were kind of recovering from lows in our relationship and praying for opportunities, seeing the future that was brighter than where we were. And she's telling me about how she's dreading to go to this workshop and it's going to be a waste of her time. It's just so stupid. And I'm like, I get it, babe, but have an open mind, right? Like maybe you'll like it. Maybe it's enjoyable. Like, tell me about it after, right? I want to know. And so she goes, and I get a phone call when she leaves, and she's like completely different from before. Like, she's like, you got to come see this. This is incredible. You're gonna love it. I can't wait. Like, we got to go back together. And I'm like, okay. I mean, obviously you kept a positive attitude, so good job. And, and a week later, we end up there together. And what an experience that day was. I remember showing up and, if anybody knows how FaceTime works in our office, right? It's, if you're coming from law enforcement, it's weird. It's, it's uncomfortable, actually. It's really uncomfortable. It's not like even regular networking events. It's very hands-on. Like, you're going to talk to people, you're going to get walked around, people are going to smile at you, people are going to say that they're really excited to see you, and you're going to be like, why are you talking to me right now? Like, that's what it was. But one thing that I did notice, I wasn't like douchey about it, you know. I was really like studying the room and in the back of my mind, and I'm like, why are these people so nice? Why is everybody so happy here? Why are people smiling and just like, this is like the happiest concentration of people I've seen in one place. I'm like, why why are these people so happy? Where's the negativity? Like, what's wrong with you people? Why are people so like, stay away from me, bro? I was very like, you know, in the back of my mind, low key, but I was like, all right, you know, we're here, you know, because our friend of ours that, you know, he walked us in here. My wife knows some people already because she, so I'm like, I'm gonna play it cool. But I was very skeptical. I was very standoffish. In the back of my mind, I just was giving off a different, you know, impression. But I was curious to see what this all was going to be about. And I trusted her. And the biggest thing I always tell people when they walk in, it's like one of my famous lines, but it's how I felt when I was there. I walked in there with an open mind and an open heart. And I didn't realize it cognizantly. Like, I wasn't like, my conscious thought wasn't, hey, you're open minded and you have an open heart. It was just the divine act of keeping my mind open and heart was taking place. And if I would have ever showed up in that room in that setting 6 months, a year before, I would have stormed right out of there because of the identity and the mindset that I had. It took me showing up there on a specific day at a specific time in my life where my mindset was in the right place for me to have that open mind and open heart. And that's why I was able to receive the message the way I was fortunate enough, and thank God I was able to receive it that way. So it was a very special day. It was a very special day for me.
Historic, I would say.
Historic. It's gonna be historic. It's gonna be more historic after the things that we accomplish in the next 5, 10 years.
So you come out and you get started. You both get started.
Right away.
And right after that, we're going to a conference where we're flying out. So there's a gap between the moment you start and the moment that we do your orientation, right?
Yeah.
In our language, it's called the fast start.
Yeah.
Our fast start. So it's a fast start because you got to go onto a fast start, but you had a slow start because you get started and we don't do your orientation until what? Was it a week after that?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, we're gonna change up the dynamic for a second because I want to ask you, what was your mindset leaving for that week after seeing a couple that could potentially be something that maybe gave off the vibes of like hardworking, ambitious, the type of people that we look for, that you got them started up, they're excited, and you're leaving for a week. What was that like for you guys? I want to know because I'm thinking back to that moment where I'm sitting from now. I'd be a little like, dang, I don't know if I want to like leave them there, you know? What was it like for you guys?
So it's so funny you asked me that because I reflect back now because that's what May. We are in November now. You guys have now done things that haven't been done since, our senior vice presidents, Hassan Naveen, where they come in, they become brokers very fast. You make money very fast. You make a statement within the office, all this stuff, right? So, me looking back, I'm like, because you said something so important, which was if you would have came 6 months, a year before that, you would have not been in the right headspace. You would have not, received the messaging the way you did.
Yeah.
But you got there that day, right time, right moment. You made the decision. So I'm like, in a way, going to that conference, it was almost like preparation for me to come back and be ready to take you guys on and take you on your journey in the way that we've been able to take you.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the mindset of, man, it was such perfect timing because we were going to a conference to get equipped, to get inspired, to dream again, to get that spark, to get that, fuel to now come back and be like, man, I am so fired up and excited to meet this couple. Very, very, like, so much potential. They remind me so much of Hassan Naveen. They remind me so much of me and my wife. Like, I just can't wait to freaking go back and see them, and especially after what we just received for a couple of days.
Yeah.
So it was almost like that timing, man, couldn't have been better because going there and receiving that to come back and meet with you guys and then give you, I would say, man, the best fast start that we probably have had in a very long
I
time.
agree. I agree.
And, now looking back, it's like timing is so perfect. And when you reflect on it, you're like, man, like it's almost like it's not by coincidence that it happened like that.
I agree. I
So
agree.
then we come back, we meet with you guys, and we meet at the house. And from the moment I walked in, I realized that with the law enforcement background, with kind of, because, I've been doing it for about 2.5 years now. So I've worked with a lot of couples, I've worked with a lot of people. I, sat in front of hundreds of people at this point. And my human nature and intuition is starting to kind of be a little bit much better than I was a year, 2 years ago. So I'm like, man, these people are people of morals, of values, people that respect. And now learning more about law enforcement, because remember, I have now some law enforcement on the team before you guys come in. So
Mm-hmm.
I've also learned the law enforcement side of things and how it is, like you say, it's very negative. It seems like the culture with couples is it's not the most, moral structured. So I'm like, man, this is a couple that's gonna value more of our morals and values, and it wasn't by coincidence that I showed you what I showed you in the playbook about what we stand for.
Yeah.
And I realized that that's something that you valued a lot, and I doubled down on it. And then, you guys being very systematic, because that's how you are, right? You're a very systematic
Systems.
guy. You're like, okay, I got to go through the system and complete it. And you're very task oriented, goal oriented. Like, you like to check off the boxes and get things done right. Going through the filters, if you notice, there wasn't that much emphasis on the system flow. It was almost
Yeah.
like, hey, man, this is what we stand for. This is where we're going. And at that time, my vision has been stretched after going to a conference where I could come back and almost paint this vision to you. Um, and it was so natural, bro. It was so natural. It was so
Yeah.
organic. It was perfect timing. It was so much excitement. And we do your orientation, we get the ball rolling, and I mean, it just starts to go. So this kind of goes back to me asking the questions to you. How are you processing that? Because you're going from doing something for 14 years to starting something brand new, and you're going now from this identity that you've worked on and you've built to now you're like, oh snap, like this is a completely different identity that now I have to essentially build up. So how was that processing for you?
It was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be, because for me, I would have been it would have been very hard to convince me that I was going to leave law enforcement anytime soon. Very, very hard to convince me. Like, you would have had to put a lot of money on the table. You would have had to sell a big dream, and I would have had to see those cards soon, like quickly. And even then. So for me, I just took it day by day, and it was something that was really intended to be a supplement to what we're doing, learn something new, add it to the toolbox, you know, maybe really just enjoy it and see where it takes us. But in my personal life, I am very go with the flow. But when I'm doing something, like you said, I'm systems, I'm task oriented. So I don't like to progress slowly in something. And I get frustrated if I am slow in the process of anything. So for me, I had to go through the steps and the promotions and things fast to prove to myself that I could even do it. And then by doing that, at the same time that that was happening, I was starting to distance myself naturally from law enforcement. I didn't feel forced. I didn't feel like, okay, I need to stop doing the things that I'm doing to go and do this other thing because I want to do this other thing more. It was just, I'm interested, I'm intrigued, I'm competitive, so I want to go through things quickly. I want to be good at what I'm doing, and if I'm going to make a commitment and I'm going to invest anything into myself, I want to see that return. I want to see how far this thing can go, and what it can even do. And then being involved in the culture of our company and our business naturally just started to pull me away without me knowing, to the point where a good friend of mine who happens to be my boss at the time in my unit is like, hey, pulls me aside after a couple months and he's like, hey, you're we knew that you and Ileana started this, this side venture that you guys are on, and uh, super excited for you guys, but you're doing a really shitty job at balancing both of them. So what I was starting to realize was I was becoming more and more committed to our company, to our industry, to the future that I started to see us having, that it was weaning me off, almost like a drug. It was weaning me off of law enforcement little by little by little. And then that observation hit me, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, wow, I have really started to prioritize the business so much more than my career, and it's noticeable. And I'm like, okay, that's where things got hard, because the identities were now battling. It was very seamless how I got attracted to the business and how my energy wanted to be here. And then once I realized that, it was like my mind catching up and saying, all right, where are we going now? This is who you are. This is who you're trying to be, but is that really who you are? And then on the same side, it's like, this is who you want to be. This is who you used to be. You don't want to be this guy anymore. You want to be this guy. What are you still doing over here? So those guys were, the angel and the devil were going at it. And I'm in the middle listening to all of this, and I'm like, okay, now the identities are starting to battle.
So did you realize it when he told you that? Or did you realize it before?
I think subconsciously I realized it before, but I didn't want to believe that I couldn't put in a real amount of effort into the business and the same amount of effort into my job, what I'm supposed to be doing. Now, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. But then on the other side, this is what I want to be doing. So then those things start to battle, and I'm like, I find myself asking myself, like, you have a dream now, finally. After so many years, you're able to see a dream, you have a vision. And I didn't realize that I was a little bit, my ego got in the way a little bit, because I thought I was so good at doing what I had been doing for so long that if I just checked out, I could be the same person that I was when I was giving it my all on autopilot. So I felt like in my mind, this was my ego saying, hey, you can go out there and build a business and you can give this your all, and you can take time away from the thing that you really know. And because you're so good at it, without consciously really having your head in the game, you can actually make it seem like you're not skipping a beat. And yeah, that could work for a day. That could work for a week. That's not going to work long term. And it started to become noticeable. And then I started to realize, yeah, you know what? Looking back, it is very noticeable. I'm not checked in. I'm not locked in. I'm not on it. And it's the same way in the business. If you're not locked in and you're a little distracted, it's noticeable. Your numbers will show it. Same thing here. I didn't have numbers, but I had my energy and my,
Commitment.
yeah.
I'm very curious to know this because, so doing it full force, doing it full time, putting in the extra effort, going full force in your law enforcement career, what is the most amount of money that you can make in a month by putting extra hours and doing everything kind of at this stage of you being in it for 14 years? What's the most amount of money that you can make in a month? Or that you made in a month? So career, full time, let's say you're doing some extra hours, how much is your take home on a monthly basis in 1 month?
I think the most I made in a month in law enforcement was right around 20 grand.
Okay. So it's not bad money.
Well, okay. Time out. Let me explain. What it took for me to make that kind of money, and guys that know where I work and have done the same thing, they know what season I'm talking about of the year. They know how many hours it takes. For me to be able to make that kind of money in law enforcement, that's about 30, 40, 50 days straight of work, no breaks, no days off, working 16 to 18 hours a day. Unreasonable, unsafe, not within policy, very, very difficult on the body, difficult on, just your mind, on your emotions, on your spirit. It's just a difficult undertaking. It's not something you can maintain. It's something that you do for a short stint to make some money, but it wears you down, it grinds you down, and you feel like crap. So that's what it takes to make that kind of money in a month at the level that I was at, which is pretty much like officer, detective, or sergeant, or even a lieutenant. To make $20,000 in a month, you're working your tail off.
Well, you just said it. You said 16, 18 hours a day for 40 to 50 days straight, no breaks. Okay, you make 20 grand. Now, what happened to you mentally when 3 months into the business, you make 16 grand and you don't even put 8 hours, 6 hours?
Yeah, it's I guess it's what they call like an aha moment. It's what they call an aha moment. And that's the funny thing is that's peanuts in this business. That's
But
peanut,
now you know
absolute
that.
peanut. Now I know. I
Now you
didn't know
know
at the
that.
time.
But at the time, 3 months into it, you go and you see you just made $16,000 and it didn't require that same level of work that you had to put into your career. What is your thought process?
That was one of the things that really bought me the belief that if it was this easy once and we can figure out how to duplicate this, it could be this easy forever. You have to just figure out how to make it consistent. And that's what bought me in. A large part of what bought me, a lot of other things bought me in. But that was one of the big things that bought me into the business was I can't make this kind of money doing, like, with the amount of labor intensive work that I was doing in, whether it was in training or SWAT or whatever it was, or just working extra details, that I can, helping people and really providing value and being a source of, man, just bringing people peace and helping their situation and just like the purpose that you get from really helping people like that. That was one of the things that was attractive to me, because a lot of cops, a lot of law enforcement guys, a lot of military guys, when they leave, it's like one of two things. They had a sense of duty and service that they wanted to uphold, which is why they did what they did, or they had a bond with the people that they were with, that they were doing, that they cared so much about, that where else are you going to be able to go and be a real change agent and really make a difference in people's lives like you did in the military or in law enforcement, whether it was for your brothers, whether it was for your peers, whether it was for the public. There's not a lot of places you can go to outside of public service that you feel that sense of service. So for me, it was like, I feel that sense of service. I see how little it really requires in terms of labor compared to what it was like, this is a no-brainer. On the money side of things, but also on the purpose side of things.
And then August comes around and you attend your first
Yeah.
conference, big event. You're flying out to Vegas.
It changed our lives.
How was that experience?
Man, that experience was, it was life-changing. Before I even get into that, there was something that sold me on this business before I even dove all in, and that was our founder and CEO. And I'd be very curious to see if he ever watches this one day. If this episode, this moment ever comes across his, his lens. But I got a very deep connection with PHP when I found out who Patrick Bet-David was, where he came from, and what he was able to do. It was inspirational, and it was somebody that I was like, man, I know a little bit about what that takes. I didn't have to go through what my parents went through or what his family went through or what he went through to get here, but I respect it because it was a part of me, and it was a part of my heritage and a part of my my family's background that I respect so much more now than I ever did. And so learning about him and realizing that, man, this guy was the man that made all this happen. And I pray for one opportunity in my life, and this is the opportunity that I fall into in a company that was built by a man like this. I was like, I gotta plant my flag here. And then going to that big event, going to Vegas with the team, with our group of just awesome people, And then seeing the leaders in this company and hearing the stories that I heard and the inspiration. And then ultimately on the last day, Patrick coming on stage and just, man, like the inspiration. It was the most inspired I've ever felt in my life. In a span of 3 to 4 days, the most inspired I've ever felt. And being like this very rough around the edges, you know, just tough guy type of vibe my whole life. When I went in there and heard some of the stories from specific individuals, there was times I was sitting there and tears start coming down my face. And I'm like, I don't even know why I'm crying, but I'm so emotional because there was a couple of stories that really hit me hard. And then I get to see and be around just greatness. And that event, that week, that conference, it was it.
And
It
and
was it.
and what were those stories? Which ones were the ones that really got to you?
Man, the big one, was Alonzo Aguilar. If you ever watched this, Alonzo, we met by the elevators, and I had to come shake your hand because your story was like, it hit me. And yeah, it was one of those, stories that when you hear it, you're like, what's my excuse?
Yeah.
What's my excuse to shy away from greatness? What's my excuse to not be absolutely a stud and a winner? I don't have an excuse because I don't have anywhere near the challenges that somebody like that had. And when I heard that, I was like a baby. I was crying. I'm like, it was so powerful. Like, I never felt so inspired by somebody's story that I had to go looking around this giant hotel that's the size of a city looking for this individual, and I finally spotted, and I got to go up to him and shake his hand and introduce myself because I felt so inspired. And being there with the team and being there with my wife and experiencing that event, that was the turning point for me where I was like, when we got back from that event, I knew in my mind it was going to be a career change. I was replacing law enforcement for PHP, for this career, for this industry. I'm planting my flag. I'm going to deliver. I'm going to get better every day. That's when it started out as a hobby. Right before big event, right before going to Vegas, it became a passion. Started to become a passion because I got so excited about it, and I felt like when I was brand new in law enforcement again, where you didn't have to pay me to be a part of this. I just wanted to be a part of it. I was getting very passionate about it. Through that event, that passion grew. After that event, coming back and seeing what we were actually capable of, because we didn't even think we were capable of hitting the first promotion. That's how limited we were. And going through that and ultimately becoming marketing directors finally after coming back from that event, then that passion turned into purpose. And that's where we're sitting today, is the very beginning of our journey in purpose here in PHP in this industry.
And now you're 35 years old,
Yeah.
and you've essentially put your time in, right, in your career for 14 years. And December's gonna, next month, marks the end of that chapter in your life.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about it?
You know, I'd be lying if I said that there weren't times recently within the last month, last few weeks, that I sit there and these thoughts creep up in my head of like, are you sure? Are you sure though? You're sure, but like, how sure are you? Like, this is a big deal. This is a big step. And initially, when those thoughts were happening, it was like a conversation again. It was that battle of the identities. It was like, all right, well, you're going to try to do this, but you're not leaving this. Like, let's be real, you know? And then it's like, okay, that wears off. And it's like, no, I am going to do this. Like, you're going to see, like, I'm going to walk away from this. And then that battle happens. And then it started to lessen and lessen. But then, like anything else, you start seeing challenges in the business. You don't just go from zero to hero. There's roadblocks, there's speed bumps, there's, you know, things that fall in your way, you know, and you look at it and you're like, okay, now that it's getting a little difficult because you hit a milestone and you're not ready to just break through every level of this company from 1 month to the next, it's going to take progress. It's going to take pain. It's going to take growth. It's going to take what it essentially took you to become whatever you became after 13, 14 years. It's going to take you that same struggle, that same battle, hopefully in a condensed time to get to where you want to get to. So when it gets a little challenging, that's where the devil on the shoulders is like, see, I told you, you don't really want to give this up because you don't know if you're going to make it or not. And you're doubting it. And it's getting hard. What happens if the first month that you quit, the business gets really rough and you don't make the same amount of money that you've been seeing, and now you got to battle with yourself again? And then what's going to happen if you have a late mortgage payment 1 month, or the bank account really dips low and you got to sell the dream because you were this big shot that came in and did X, Y, and Z? And like those thoughts creep up in the back of your head. And those were the type of thoughts that I had to really limit, that I had to say no. You can think it, you can recognize that it's going on, but you have to shut it down, and you have to understand that, you know, I knew that the decision that I made, it didn't happen overnight. It was calculated, and it was my instinct. My instinct told me to make that decision at one point in time because it's what I needed to do. And if I made that decision internally and I believed in it, and I planted my flag over here and I believed in it, I can't just go where the wind blows. The whole point of this decision was to burn my ships, to put my back to the wall, so that I force myself to bring out the best version of me in this business. So it's a struggle. It's a back and forth because I had such a strong identity before. It's not like I was coming from a place where I just didn't really, there was nothing there for me. So this is just so easy to transition to. It was a big thing to have to battle with and say, hey man, like your family's looking at you a certain way. Like your family's looking at you at like, this individual who you're giving up. You could have a pension one day. You could retire with decent money one day. You could live a comfortable life. You just gotta pay a little bit more of your dues. Why are you quitting? Why are you giving in? And it's like, it takes the other side of you to understand, like, okay, they're seeing it from that lens, because to them, that's all they can process it like, you know. For me, I'm like, I'm not quitting. My passion and my purpose was here. That changed. This is just a different season, and now I'm going towards my next. And so for me, it was just really becoming comfortable with that and settling into that, and knowing that if the road does get bumpy, like, I got the off-road tires. I'm ready to go. If it gets bumpy, like, let's do it, because I know what's on the other side of bumpy if you grind and you don't give up. If I keep entertaining the what ifs and the doubt, it's only gonna put me in a bad spot. So that's the battle. That's the battle.
It's exciting though.
It's exciting.
It's exciting because
It's challenging. It's exciting. It's beautiful.
it's challenging, and it's good challenging. And I think you thrive very well off challenging, because as we're having this conversation, even though you've worked so hard to get to this point in your law enforcement career, it's not like it's been, flowers and rainbows. It's been challenging. You've expressed the challenges in marriage, and you've overcame them, and look at where you're at now. Law enforcement,
Yeah.
it's been challenging, but you've overcame it, and look at where you're at now. So you got to see this business the same way. Now, the battle is always going to be being 51% optimistic and 49% paranoid, where the belief and the dream in yourself and what you want to do has to overshadow those fears and limitations, because you're going to go through them. I'll be lying to you if I told you that it's not going to happen, because it happens to the best of us, you know? And it's almost like that's where you get the real respect, is where you go through it and you're able to overcome it. That's when you get your flowers.
Yeah.
The story's not as inspirational if you don't go through the shit that you go through. Like you just mentioned, the inspiration that you got from Alonzo. If it was peaches, rainbows, and flowers, it wouldn't be as inspirational.
Yeah.
So just having that understanding that, hey man, you're going to go through certain things, but you got to embrace it, because on the other side of that, the reward is way, way much bigger than you could ever imagine.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps that fire, is knowing that in the long run, because think about giving this business 14 years. The way that you gave law enforcement, and although you went through the challenges, 14 years later, look what you've accomplished. Look 14 years ahead, you're 49 years old, and now you've went off and sold, the People's Angels Agency to an Integrity for $500 million, $1 billion.
Yeah.
Look at where life is going to be at when you're 50 years old, when you're celebrating your 50th birthday, where you're going to be at. That's what's exciting. So it's going to be the best ride of our lives, man. It's going to be, we're young, we're healthy. We're in the greatest country, the greatest company, the greatest opportunity. You got the best guidance, mentors. You got Haas, you got Rodolfo, you got Pat to inspire you. It's beautiful, bro. It's beautiful, and it's a gift, and it's a blessing that, this is going to be your next chapter of your life. And 15 years from now, we're going to be doing this podcast, episode 5,000, and we're going to be looking back at this one like, man, like this journey, right?
It's funny because when we were having dinner the other night with Rodolfo, and he was talking about record a video that you're going to watch in 10 years, and throw out your dreams and throw out what you're going to be doing in 10 years. And we did a small version of that you guys saw from the big event from Vegas conference. And that's something that I said I'm going to do that. Like, we're going to do it, and we're going to sit down together and do it. I was going to do it on my own, but I want to do it with Ileana together. But this is another version of that. This is us sitting here right now. For me, we know a guy who's been in this business for 14 years, and we know how it's working out for him right now. And he's the one that we get to get so much coaching and inspiration from. There's not a lot of people better than that to sell the dream to you of what you're really into and what you can accomplish, especially in this day and age with all the things that we have going for us. Like, it's just, you almost can't blow it. You just, like, so hard to, unless you quit, and for me, I'm really excited about the future, because I can only imagine, looking back on this, how much we're going to laugh and how interesting it's going to feel when we're in the shoes of some of our mentors and we're able to inspire so many people. Because 10 years after this conversation, we've gone through so much that, man, I mean, who we're going to be able to lead and inspire, it's exciting. It's exciting.
It's, when I was sitting down, because for a very long time, I've been told you should do content, you should do this, you should do a podcast, you should put things out there. And for so long, I didn't do it. And now saying, hey, you know what? It doesn't take perfection for us to just document everything, right? Because this is documenting essentially the journey, the progress, where we're at, where we're headed. And then 5 years go down, you do another one, and you look back, and it's because guess what? One day our kids and grandkids are going to be watching this, and they're going to be watching the 3rd episode, and then they're going to watch the 100 and 150 episode, and over that time, there's going to be a lot of progression. That it's almost like you look back, and that's going to still believe in you. When you, 10 years from now, when you watch this video and you hear yourself and you're listening to what you just said, and then you're like, man, I was really thinking that? I was really feeling that at the time?
Yeah.
And then now look where we're at. It's almost kind of like it's going to pour even more belief into you, because you believe this at one point, and then you just completely just smashed through those beliefs and those thoughts and made it on the other side. It's very exciting, man. It's very exciting. I'm very excited for you. I'm very excited for Eliana. I'm excited for our future. I'm excited for our kids to grow up together. I'm excited to live that dream life that we always talk about. Like the video I showed you the other
Oh,
day.
man.
Just walking up on that stage and looking up at 80,000 people just screaming your name and cheering you on, and the intro, the video that you're going to have of what you've been able to do. And I know somebody one day is going to create a video of your law enforcement career, transitioned into entrepreneur, transitioned into world leader, inspirational, motivational speaker, and author. And you're gonna write books one day about that, because remember, a lot of your mindset and a lot of the lessons that you took from law enforcement, you now are going to translate it to the business world. And the business world is going to go ahead and lead you to other chapters of your life where it all really comes down together. And I don't think there's going to be a better book to read than the one of the guy that worked in law enforcement for 14 years, built such identity, and then just the chapter completely changed. Because if you were to look back 5 years ago and you're writing your book, there's no chapter about entrepreneurship and financial services. even of a thought. So then now that that comes into play, and you're gonna be doing it, that's what life is about. I always
Yeah.
think about that's what life is about. That's why I'm so excited for me to continue having these conversations with people,
Yeah.
because I'm gonna learn so much about how people's lives can change and go, and you think you got it all planned out, and then life takes you a completely different route, and
Yeah.
that's the beautiful part about life. So I'm excited for the people to hear this.
Yeah.
I'm excited for many more that we're going to do, because this is going to compound to part one, two, and three, like Dante, right? Dante's got a part one, and
Yep.
he's going to have a part two. You're going to have a part two, part three. And I'm excited to do this at the big events.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
excited to do these at the conferences. I'm excited to just document everything. And as you can see, it doesn't take much.
Yeah. I think when we were selling the dream to each other about that 80,000 person packed stadium with, first of all, I can't even imagine the 80,000. That's gonna be loud. It's loud at MGM Grand right now, and that's this big. I can't imagine what that stadium is gonna look like. But taking segments of this podcast episode and putting it into a screen that 80,000 people are going to see one day, and we're going to pull a segment of this, and we're going to talk about inspiration and dreams to the newest person who's just hungry and ready to just take life and just run with it. It's going to be amazing. When we didn't talk much about the People's Angels, but that name, it came from a few different things. When we got the ability to craft our own agency name, and I looked at it as it's a heritage. It's a heritage of where I've come from, what I was a part of that got Ileana and I to that identity of the People's Angels. And a big part of that was implementing everything from our past, our what was present, and now what we want to see in the future. And that name didn't show up by accident. That logo, which will make itself apparent and well known, didn't show up by accident. Our motto of faith, integrity, and service didn't show up there by accident. A lot of that is, faith is what introduced us into this industry. Integrity is one of the most valuable qualities that we can have in the name of our parent company. Service is the background that we came from and what we care so much about. Uh, you know, Angels are there to protect people. A shield and a sword are there as symbols of strength and resilience and fight, coming from guardians of wealth, coming from wealth warriors, coming from all of these different backgrounds. That the name and the logo and the culture and the heart and the soul of our agency is cut from all of those cloths. And that's why it's so special. And leaving law enforcement is, it's one chapter coming to an end, but one of our biggest inspirations is giving back to our law enforcement community and the first responder community. I plan on being a lot more active in law enforcement through a different perspective, through a different avenue than I ever was before, because what the epiphany that I had learning about our industry is something that I want all first responders to know about. It's important information. It's important for their lives. The purpose that we got for wanting to give back to our first responders and go out there and be on this relentless mission to educate them and make sure that they have the tools in place for them and their families. I never want to see a GoFundMe with an officer or a firefighter or first responder's face on it and people donating out of pity with, their family's picture and name and description on there. We have a solution for that. And I never knew about it in 14 years. And I finally learned about it, and it was an epiphany. And that's one of the things that gave me purpose in one area to redeliver that purpose to an area that I spent my entire adult life in, to people who deserve to have that peace of mind and those things in place for their families, because I was one of the blessed, lucky ones that didn't suffer a critical injury, that didn't lose my life in the line of duty, that didn't have to go through some of the things that people I know went through and people that I know that are no longer here went through. And for those people that had to suffer a completely life-changing outcome, and for those families that no longer have the individuals who I had the blessing of knowing, I owe it to them. So what we're doing is so much bigger than becoming influential entrepreneurs, so much bigger than us, so much bigger than the wealth we're going to build one day, the books we're going to write, the life we're going to live. It's about making a real impact. And I think, like the philosophy that we have in our company, when you do that, everything else just falls into place. So I'm
Man, that's
excited
beautiful,
about
bro.
that.
That's fucking beautiful.
I'm excited about it.
So to finish it off, I'm gonna, mention somebody, and you give me one word for that person.
Oof.
Okay.
Okay. This is the infamous. What is it?
Closing line.
Knee-jerk reaction, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna
All
put the
right.
cigar down for this.
You ready?
All right. Hit me.
So your dad.
Powerful.
Your mom.
Love.
Your wife.
Patience. So much patience.
Patrick Bet David.
Inspiration.
And your daughter.
My heart.
My man.